How do we start taking our emotions into the next level and start portraying it in our singing and our performance? In today's episode, I'm going to be sharing two very simple ideas. So make sure to check it out. Let's go. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Singing Simply Show. My name is Ivan, and on this show, we aim to demystify singing and just make it as easy and simple as possible for you because let's face it, learning to sing can be a bit confusing, especially when you're first starting off and you're trying to do it on your own. And so I want to kind of lay things out a bit more for you step by step. And today's episode actually was inspired by a question that I received here on Anchor. And actually, whilst we're talking about that, if you've got a question or if you've got a suggestion on what you'd like to hear more on this podcast next, right? I'd love to hear more from you, right? And I'm going to drop, my Instagram, my email in the description below. And you can also leave a question right here on Anchor and send me that question. I'd love to hear more, and maybe this can serve as inspiration for our next episode. But for today, the question that I received was, how do we start to portray emotion in your singing? How do you hit the right notes, right, while sounding on the brink of tears or portraying rage without completely losing that technique, without completely losing control of your voice? And the reason why this question was so good and why it's important, right, is often for us as singers, and I shared this in a past episode, one of the most important things is, can we get our audience to feel something? Right? And often to get your audience to feel something, you got to feel it as well. But how do you do it without losing control? And today I wanted to share two very simple ideas. And let's just dive straight into it. Number one, and this is something I picked up from my one of my coaches in the past, one of my singing teachers from the past, Tyler Wysong. So thank you so much, Tyler, is focus on the affects. Right. And if this is the first time you've heard of this term, affects, or what even is affects, right? Basically, affect, and my definition of it at the moment is two things. It's the intent, which is, like the intention or the way you're thinking, right? If you're thinking anger, if you're thinking sadness, right? That thing you're thinking about, but also the body language, right? Because often, for example, if you're smiling, sometimes when you smile first, even though you're not really feeling it, sometimes you end up feeling happy anyway, right? But the opposite is obviously true as well. Sometimes when you feel happy, you naturally smile. Those two kind of things are quite interlinked. And so this is what I can define as affect, the intention, but also the body language to match it. You might even think of this as the emotion, right? What is the emotion you're trying to portray? But I did want to break it down a bit more for you. And the reason why this is important, right, is when you focus on the right affects, the cool part is you can, number one, get the emotion across, right? Because you got to feel it. But the second thing that's really cool about choosing the right affects is when you choose the right affects, it can actually affect things on a technical level, which is how much breath you're using, the tonal quality of the sound, your ability to hit the high notes. Those things are all often affected by your affects. And so this is why it's going to be so important to choose it. Now, how do we choose the right affect? Here's a few very, very simple steps. And this is something I often do with my summer clients, right? People who work with me, I often get them to run through this exercise, which is go through a song, choose a song and go through the lyrics. And you can listen to it as you go. And what you want to work on is, can you summarize that lyric or the words into one very simple word or phrase? Can you summarize that? Because chances are you are going to land on the affect, right? Is it about, despair? Is it about freedom? Is it about joy? When you can really summarize and put that down into one word, that now becomes your affect. Because what you can do once you've figured out what the affect is, then you want to be able to match the intent and the body language, right, to that. Which means, sing through the song. But as you're singing through the song, you want to be asking yourself, does my face portray the despair? Does my face portray, happiness? Does my body portray that? And am I also thinking about it? Am I thinking about happiness? Am I thinking about despair? Do I have an image of it? Or am I thinking about, my dog? Yeah, right? Thinking about something completely random. See if you can work through that, right? So once again, go through the song lyrics, summarize it down into one very simple word or phrase. That is your affect. And then you want to make sure, is my body language matching that? And is also my intention. So am I actually thinking about it when I'm singing, or am I thinking about something else? Can you match those two in? Because when you do that, you will be portraying the right emotion. And in fact, you're probably going to be portraying more emotion than you've ever done before. Now, this actually then leads on to the second step, right? So tip number 1 was focusing on affects, right? Tip number 2 is training the ability to just sing. Just sing, right? And this is going to be so important when it comes to portraying emotions, because we actually did a open mic for our summit clients and for my students, right, recently. And one of the things that I often remind them as they're going into the open mic is, there is a time to be working your technique, and there is a time to just sing. Because often what can happen is, as you're learning, going through this process of improving your voice, improving your technique, you can get stuck in over analyzing your voice. As you're singing your songs, you're thinking, oh, is my pitch on point? Oh my gosh, is my breath here? And often you forget to just sing, right? And so one of the things I get my clients to do is have designated slots where you are just practicing singing, Because when you do this, right, you're actually practicing this skill of tapping out of your analytical, or that analytical part of your brain, and you're tapping to this flow state, or you're tapping to this part of your brain where it's just being, right? And this is going to be super, super useful, because when you're performing, you do not want to be analyzing yourself as you're singing, because that's going to take you off your A game. And this is why you need to practice this ability to just sing. And so if I was working through the song and I'm just, say, for example, focusing on the pitch or focusing on technique, you run your fingers across my lips. All of a sudden, it starts to sound a bit robotic. It starts to sound a bit, dull. And this is often what I see with my singers, right? And once we get them to tap into, feeling it, tap into just singing, tap into just being, you might get stuff like this. You run your fingers across my lips. And even as I was singing through that, I actually had to do a few takes, because I noticed my brain was wanting to go back into analysis, right? Wanting to see like, oh, you didn't do that right. You got to focus on this. And I forgot to just sing. And it took me a few times to get there. And this is why practice is so important. You really want to build this ability to just sing. And so basically these are the 2 steps, right? And if anything, these are 2 exercises. And so what I would love for you to do, and as a bit of action, take some action right now, is choose one of this. Choose one of these ideas. Maybe it's focusing on the affect, right? You maybe want to go through the lyrics and figure out what the affect is. Then you match your intention, match your body language to it, or practice this ability to just sing. So you're just singing a song and you're not analyzing yourself. Choose one of them, and I want you to work on that for the next week. And if you've got any questions, feel free to message me on Instagram, or you can send me an email. I'm going to drop my link in the description below. Connect with me. I'd love to see if there's any other ways I could serve you. But work through these 2 exercises, and you might want to, go through this episode again and really make sure you've understood this, because this is a really, really important concept. And so apart from that, this wraps up our episode for today. And remember, you are not your limitations, and I'll see you all for our next episode. Take care. Hey team, if you've enjoyed this episode or found value, I'd really, really appreciate it if you could leave a review or a comment to let me know your thoughts on this, and maybe some topics you want to hear in the future. And also share this episode with a friend or family that this could help, because the more people that can hear these kind of content, this kind of message, the merrier, the bigger our community grows, the better. So apart from that, really, really appreciate you for doing this, and I'll see you real soon. Take care.